All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Jenna Wood, and I am one of the dietitians here with the Giant Company. Today, so it's Monday again somehow. So we have our Meal Solutions Monday class where we now are transitioning, talking about our flyer and how to transition some of those items into an actual meal. If you joined me Friday, we touched on the organic meat company and different products that they have. So I am again using their sirloin. I got to eat a lot of beef this week. Um, so we are using that for a different recipe. And I'll touch on just some other ways you can utilize it as well. Because truly, more often than not, when I buy a sirloin, it's just being cooked as is, maybe a marinade and grilling. But I figured maybe we could talk about some recipes to utilize it. But let us jump in. So, as always, when we talk about flyer to fork, there are many ways that we can look at our circular. So, we're going to talk about that circular today, kind of towards the end. What items I've pulled out of our weekly circular for my recipe today, because I want to make sure you can utilize some different items and bring that to life with our featured food, which is going to be that sirloin from the Organic Meat Company and a couple other items that you can use. So how can you find the weekly ad? So if you're new to our classes, there are a couple different ways to find that circular or ad or flyer. We'll use a couple different names for it. So you can find it in your mailbox, of course, depending on where you live. You may get it mailed to you. Typically on Thursdays, you'll get that in your mailbox. If you do not receive it for whatever reason, you can always pick up a copy in our stores. However, you can access typically a preview of that ad on our website or in our app as well. And I truly love utilizing it on our website or in our app because if there's any digital coupons or anything, or you can add them right to your shopping cart right in there. So, it takes a little bit of more finesse, but I do think it's quite nice to look at it that way too. So this is our circular for this week. So the 10th through the 16th already. So this is an example from the Camp Hill location. So yours may vary slightly. And of course, again, when you're on our website, whether it's Giant or Martin's, you will find up here, it'll say weekly ad. There's a couple ways, both in the app and on the website, to get to it because we want you to use it. Again, this is what it looks like. This was an older one, but this is what it would look like in your app as well. Couple different ways to access it there too. The easiest way would be to click on the save at the bottom and it should come up. You can view it both in print and in grid view, depending on what you're looking for. Now today we are using the sirloin from the Organic Meat Company. Now, again, there are so many different ways to cook sirloin. And again, since this is going to be an organic grass-fed beef, we want to make sure we're not overcooking this. We want it to taste and have that beautiful texture that we've come to expect. So there's not too many recipes for sirloin in our database, but there are a handful. And of course, there are other steak recipes that you can, of course, utilize this one in. All right, we are going to dive into our recipe today. So I am utilizing the Organic Meat Company's sirloin for a beef fried rice, which I do love a good fried rice. This is by no way an authentic fried rice. Some of the ingredients are a little silly when it comes to a fried rice, but it does sound delicious. So a very simple recipe to throw together today. My skillet preheated on time. So our recipe for today. So if you go to the link we shared in the email and that we'll share, afterwards, I've tweaked it slightly because I'm using some items that are in the circular and very likely I love doing fried rice as a way to use up maybe leftover rice that I have or leftover ingredients. So, more often than not, you probably won't be cooking fresh rice for your fried rice because that's not even the best rice to use for it. So, the original directions talk about boiling, some rice in a chicken broth, I believe. We're not doing that. Let me take off my lid here. So we are, however, going to follow the rest of the directions. So I'm going to scramble 2 eggs and add them in to our fried rice. We are going to use the Organic Meat Company sirloin. It calls for half a pound. I don't want leftovers for my beef, so I'm going to do the whole 12 ounces today. Calls for some sesame oil. If you don't love sesame oil, to me, 2 tablespoons is a lot. I love the flavor, but subtly. So you could always swap out some of that if you'd like for just a plain like canola oil. We're using our reduced sodium soy sauce today. This is the ingredient that is so not traditional, but these sliced roasted red peppers, and then 2 cups of vegetables. So the recipe standard calls for frozen peas and corn. I'll show you what I'm using because it calls for 2 full cups. So I'll show you what I'm using. And then just some scallions or green onions to garnish. I will send the recipe, of course, but we are just going to dive into it after just some talking about why this recipe is great for this week. So the in-ad items that I'm going to utilize today and some other ones, you don't have to utilize this R brand diced vegetables. However, if you're looking for convenience and don't feel like chopping up things, I typically really like onions in my fried rice. I don't have any today. That is a great item in our circular this week you can add. But the two I really want to call out are going to be the microwavable rices. So they're on sale this week, and there are so many different kinds. I was debating what recipe I wanted to make today. So certainly if you just grill or, pan fry very gently like we did the other day, our steak, you can serve it alongside something like our Spanish rice or our brown rice. That would make a great side. And then some vegetables. We have a ton of, veggies on sale this week. That'd be a very simple way to cook that up. We do also have so many different like marinades and dressings in our brand that you could marinate the steak if you wanted to. It certainly doesn't need it, but any little flavor is always good. Finally, of course, what we're advertising this week is going to be that Organic Meat Company beef sirloin steak, only $7.99 for these two beautiful petite steaks. So make sure, you pick them up before the sale is over. As we touched on Friday, but if you missed it, I'm just going to add my eggs. So I did scramble 2 eggs. I just wanted them to get in that skillet. If you missed our class on Friday, we did talk about the Organic Meat Company in a little bit more detail. But if you missed it, of course, the Organic Meat Company, all of their beef products are certified organic. They're raised with care, no antibiotics, added hormones, synthetic additives. They are, again, that grass-fed and finished beef. So they are raised their whole lives on that kind of pasture and grasses with fresh air, clean water, and a natural shelter, that low stress environment where they naturally were living. As we touched on Friday, so grass-fed meat is naturally going to be a little bit different in taste because of some of the nutrients we find in that beef, which are going to be slightly more omega-3s, beta carotene, which is a vitamin A precursor, vitamin E, and then some other compounds, things we think of with steak, things like iron and zinc, and plenty of B vitamins. Again, you might notice a slight taste difference in something like our fried rice. It's just going to complement so perfectly, but it may have a richer taste than you're used to. However, it is still lower in fat. So you're going to have this more bold flavor, but less fat. All right, so we are going to stop sharing. We'll get back to the circular after, but I want to turn on my other camera so you can see it here. My eggs are already cooking. Let's see. Did it turn on? It did. Okay. So, oh yeah. Okay, that's already cooked. Oh my goodness. Okay, hold on. Let me make sure I am spotlighting both cameras. And then here we go. There we go. Okay, perfect. So you can see the egg. I just scrambled 2 eggs and threw them right in there, but they are done. So they didn't really have to cook for very long. It's kind of just like this beautiful little patty that when I add back into the fried rice, I'm just going to kind of chunk it up. But we're going to set that aside. Now we are I'm going to wear gloves just because I'm touching a lot of different things while I am teaching our class today, but I'm going to cut up our beef. So the recipe says to cut it into 1-inch cubes and then salt and pepper if you desire. I'm not gonna because we're adding a ton of other, ingredients that have salt. So I'm going to move that skillet. You can see my cutting board there. Perfect. Okay. So again, this is our package. I'll show both cameras. So the sirloin steak, I am just going to cut it open. Again, I think I mentioned this on Friday. You can cut it in half and save one side, as long as you're cutting, don't open it like I did on purpose. But I have one I threw in the freezer. It froze perfectly. So make sure, if you only want one steak, you can cut it and use one. All right, come on, get it out of there. Beautiful. And then we'll open our other one. So I still have my skillet on high here. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of the sesame oil now, and then another later. So, oh, they look so nice. Look at that. It has like a darker color a little bit, like almost a more purpley hue. But it looks so good. So 1-inch cubes we're going to cut today. Mhm. I love fried rice. It is so easy. And I'll touch on reasons why this recipe is so good for really any weeknight, great for lunch. Okay. So just whatever size cubes you want, but inch was the recommendation in the recipe. Mm. So this will be about 12 ounces. The recipe said about half a pound. So we're doing a little bit more, but I don't think more steak is ever a problem. So, because if you only did one of the petite steaks, that's only 6 ounces. So kind of just depends on what you're looking for. I think 12 is going to be just fine though. Hmm. And as you can kind of see, there are some pieces of fat in there, but it is definitely a leaner cut compared to a conventional, like grain finish beef. Okay. Good one. Beautiful. Okay. How nice. So then you take off one glove, and I'm just going to drizzle in about a tablespoon of our sesame oil. Sesame oil is strong, but it'll be nice. All right, so then with my gloved hand still, we're gonna throw this one. We're gonna throw all that in there. And I'm gonna move my dirty cutting board out of our way. So you can kind of see them back up. Look how nice. So we only want to cook them for about like 4 to 5 minutes total. It says stirring constantly, so we don't want to overcook them. And we want to get like a nice color on all the sides. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it smells so good. Even with even with the sesame oil. I do have a regular sesame oil, but I do also have it toasted. I might add a little bit of the toasted. The toasted almost tastes more mild to me, which doesn't make any sense, but I do actually like the toasted. Oh, look at that coloring. You can see that. Beautiful. I love this skillet. It works so well. Cooking it a little bit more. All right, let's see. So we have our steak in here. I'll touch through as it's finishing up the rest of the ingredients I'm using. So it calls for 3/4 of a cup of sliced roasted red peppers. I did already slice that just so I could use the cutting board for the raw meat and then be done with it. But I'm just using our fire roasted red peppers. Very big jar, but it was a good price for this much. I only used one of the peppers. So when you open this, you'll pull it out and it's like a whole pepper. I only used one and it's about 3/4 of a cup worth. I love these. So if you have leftovers on salads, on wraps, sandwiches, lots of good ways to use it up. So 3/4 of a cup of that. Stir and keep stirring. You can cut the beef smaller if you'd like. You could do strips as well, kind of any way you really want to cut it. Then we are going to do the 2 cups of the vegetables. So it calls for a cup of frozen peas and a cup of corn. So we need 2 cups of veggies. We have this lovely like mixed vegetable mix from Nature's Promise. It has, as you can see, peas and corn, but it also has carrots and green beans, whatever vegetables you want. So what I love about a fried rice is, let's say you have leftover veggies from throughout the week. This is a great meal to make like on a Thursday or Friday with some of those leftover things. But this is 2 full cups, and I thought that was perfect. Wait, I can open it. I let them kind of defrost a little on the counter. So they're not like frozen still. All right. Okay. I would say they still need about like 30 seconds. I don't want them like severely undercooked, even though I do love like a rare beef. Maybe not for fried rice. So then just like we took the egg out, we're going to take the beef out. And then it says to add the remaining sesame oil. We'll see how much oil is kind of left in there. We may need to add a little bit more. Okay. Let's scoop all of our beef out. And then at the end, we'll add it all back, of course. It smells so good. All right. Get all this out of there. Oh, look how nice that looks. Okay. So then into the skillet, you can see there is a little bit of oil still in there, so I'm going to wait to add it. But we're going to add in our cooked rice. So I'm going to do, I think I'm going to do 2 of these packets of the pre-cooked rice. Again, if you have already cooked and cooled rice from another meal, certainly day-old rice is better for a fried rice. So this works great for that. So I think the recipe, you're supposed to cook like a cup of rice, and that'll turn into like almost 3 cups of cooked rice. This is like a little under that, but I think it just depends on how many people you're serving. If you want to do a 3rd packet, that's fine too. Okay, so we have our rice in there. Then I think I am going to add just a touch more oil, just a little. Okay. So we have our veggies. We're going to add about 2 tablespoons of the reduced sodium soy sauce. So I love our Taste of Inspirations one. I am going to measure this. So 2 tablespoons. 1. Oh, the rice is popping. Okay. Smells good. All right. Let's mix that up. Break up any of the like bigger chunks. You can see some of the chunks of rice. Break that up. And we're just going to heat it through just like we would in the microwave. Certainly, if you wanted to microwave the packet so it's already hot, you could do that, but it will not take long to heat through in our skillet. Beautiful. So we have our rice in here. It says to cook it for about 2 minutes. Of course, the rice is not cold like it might be if you had put it in your fridge, so it's really not going to take all that long. Getting that part. And this is the basmati of the little microwave packets. If you want to use brown, again, brown rice is not super traditional in a fried rice, but you could use brown rice too. The amount of fiber is not different. So totally up to you what you want from a taste perspective. I'm using a white basmati rice today. Okay. Perfect. So all of that is in there. Then we're just going to add our veggies. So the 3/4 of a cup of the roasted peppers. If you have fresh peppers lying around, maybe already sliced for like snacks or something, I typically do fresh red peppers if I'm adding them. But If you had some roasted red peppers in a jar on hand too, that works. Okay, so that's in there. And then we're gonna add our veggies. So it calls for 2 cups, like a cup of the corn and a cup of the peas. So this is about 2 cups total of a bunch of veggies. It looks really good. It came together so fast. Okay. All right. So then we're just going to warm that through as well. And then as soon as the veggies are kind of heated through, look how beautiful, it's very colorful. As soon as those veggies are heated through, we're going to add back in the beef and the eggs. And I still have my skillet on high. Of course, if you have like a big skillet or a wok or something, you could do this on your stovetop. Of course, I just love, and this is just nice to be able to kind of be here on the counter and show you how to do all this. Okay. Very nice. So I'm going to add, so this is our egg patty. So does not want to break up anymore. I'm going to just kind of break it up. Get in there. This was just 2 eggs. If you like a lot of egg in your fried rice, certainly you could add a third. No problem there. I thought about it. Okay. Mix that up. Add our beef back in. It smells so good. All right. So, don't know where my measuring cup went. Yeah. I love cooking with you guys at lunchtime. I get a beautiful lunch. So there is our fried rice. And I did already slice up a couple scallions or green onions. So I'm just going to top. I love. Perfect. Look how quickly that came together. And it smells amazing. Certainly, if you want a little bit more soy sauce, just depending on how much sodium you are allotted for yourself, certainly you could do that. I do also think if you want to add a spicy kick, you could add a little bit of sriracha or other type of chili sauce. That would be delicious. I am going to stick a lid on this and turn off that camera because we do have a couple more slides to go through and our circular as well. So I'm going to stop that video. New spotlight. Perfect. So I am going to, where is my recipe? Okay. Where did I go? All right, let me pull this back up so you can see some more slides. Okay. That is not the slide I want. Okay. There we go. All right, so our recipe highlights today why I think this is a great one to try. A lot of people have made fried rice before, but this is certainly a great one if you never have. It's so simple to throw together. It is a 1 skillet meal. Truly, you're like cooking the egg and then the beef, taking it out, just setting it aside on a clean plate and adding it back into everything. You'll get a good source of protein and some great iron and zinc from that organic meat company sirloin. It is so versatile, a great way to use up leftovers, especially things like the leftover rice or the microwave and bag rice that we use today, but any veggies you have. That's one thing that's really great about a fried rice or a stir fry style meal. And it's a great alternative to take out. So you saw how quickly that came together. And I chopped most of the things in front of you or utilized some convenience things like those frozen veggies. Tons of other sirloin recipes, and by tons, like there were like 40, which still can keep you in sirloin recipes for a while. This sesame beef rice bowl, this was the other thing I considered making too, because it has the rice, it has edamame, which I love, some broccoli, and then again, that sirloin. Another delicious sounding one, the pesto steak asparagus and potato skillet. I believe there are some asparagus spears on sale in the circular. Asparagus is definitely something I think of as a spring veggie. However, when it's on sale, it's on sale. And then we have the Korean beef bulgogi lettuce wraps, just another delicious recipe you can use rice for, and that's sirloin and some scallions too. So utilizing similar ingredients here. So what classes are coming up? Make sure you tune in tomorrow. We're continuing our produce spotlight of pumpkin and apples. So Shayna will be here tomorrow with apples. Wednesday, so talking more about protein like we have been with our beef from the Organic Meat Company. Charlotte will be talking about protein-packed convenience on Wednesday. So of course you can register. October and November classes should be on there. And I believe we are going to transition and talk about our circular. So you're welcome to hang on and join me to go over our circular. But otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope you take care.